Shawnee, aka Total Makeup Junkie 101. So I have a problem. I needed a new neutral palette like I needed a hole in the head, and I saw these two palettes on coastalscents.com and I was just attracted to them and thought, hey, I need a new neutral palette like I need a hole in the head. Add to cart, check out. Who does that? But I mean, it's justified, right? I wanted to review it for you guys, so that's my justification on that. Either way, Coastal Scents has basically their version or their rendition on a Urban Decay Naked palette out, and they are called the Coastal Scents Revealed palettes. Now, the way I found out about these is because Coastal Scents was kind of blowing up social media with this new Revealed 2 palette that recently came out. I think it was maybe a couple weeks ago. And after I went to look at this Revealed 2 palette, I was like, hey, I don't even have the original Revealed palette, so obviously I need that one too. So I got both of these. Now, if you guys don't know about Coastal Scents is basically a really inexpensive cosmetic company. Usually they sell bigger palettes like the 88 palettes. If you guys have seen that, it's like a full rainbow of colors. The quality on them can be hit or miss, but most of the time the pigmentation is pretty good on Coastal Scents items, which is always nice. And like I said, they're really inexpensive. So I actually started out, when I initially started out with makeup, here we go, flashback to Total Makeup Junkie back in the day when I was just getting into eyeshadow. I feel like eyeshadow is one of those things that beginners really get confused and they don't know where like the good products are and stuff. This is when YouTube was blowing up about the Coastal Scents 88 palettes, like the matte and shimmer palettes, and that was actually my very first eyeshadow purchase were the Coastal Scents 88 palettes. To this day, I still have them. I don't use them a whole lot anymore because I have other products that I like better, but I like keeping them more for sentimental reasons than anything. But either way, Coastal Scents I haven't purchased from since I started like my whole makeup obsession like 5 years ago. So it has been a while since I have logged on to the Coastal Scents website, and after I saw that they really have kind of stepped up their game a lot, they have a lot more products than obviously they had 5 years ago. Why is that such an obvious statement for me to make? But these palettes really caught my attention because when you look at them, they look very reminiscent of the Urban Decay Naked palettes. If you guys can see, the size of the shadow pan is exactly the same as the Urban Decay Naked palettes. The colors look very similar. The tones are very similar. So when I first saw this, I was like, wow, that is like a dead-on dupe for the Naked palette. Now obviously, as you can see, this palette has 20 eyeshadows in it, whereas the Urban Decay Naked palette has 12. But at a whopping $19.95 price tag, so just under $20, you get 20 shades. So that breaks down to basically $1 a piece. And I was like, you know what, this is worth a shot. And I have to say, I am very happy that I made that investment. These palettes are spectacular, especially for the price. They are great palettes. Now, a quick overview of the palette. This is the first Revealed palette. It comes in a very thin cardboard packaging, and this is something that I love about the palette overall because it is not big, it's not bulky, it doesn't have any extra packaging than what is needed. It does not have a mirror, which I actually don't mind in a palette like this because I think it weighs a lot less, and especially when you're traveling, there's just one less thing for you to worry about. There's no worry of the mirror shattering because this is such a thin cardboard. I'm actually kind of happy they don't have a mirror in this palette. And the 20 shades are all lined up really nice and neat. They don't have any names of the shades, which is the one bad thing, I guess. But there's no extra space that's used up. Literally, all you need is all you have. You only need this very nice, small, super compact palette to have 20 neutral shades, pretty much everything you would need. This is the revealed #1 palette, which is the one I've been holding up this entire time. The revealed #1 palette really did remind me a lot of the original Naked palette, which is right here on the bottom. If you guys can see, a lot of the shades do match up, which is really, really interesting. And this original revealed palette also did remind me a lot of the Urban Decay Naked 2 palette. So I feel like the original revealed palette is kind of a combination of the Naked 2 and the Naked 1, which is really cool because if you don't want to get both the Naked 1 and Naked 2, that would be $100 plus right there. I think they're each $52 a piece. You can spend $20 and pretty much get a lot of the same shades here. And then when I saw that Coastal Scents was releasing the Revealed 2 palette, which once again is the exact same layout as the Revealed 1, which I absolutely love. It's just got different shades in it, obviously. When I heard this palette was coming out, I had a really, really strong feeling it was going to be inspired by the Naked 3, which it absolutely is. As you can see, the Revealed 2 palette, which is the top one here, has a lot of the very similar shades. It is another kind of rosy, pinky toned palette, which is what the Naked 3 is known for, kind of like those rosy neutrals. And in this Revealed 2 palette, you get a lot more selection. Now, if you guys want to see the Revealed 2 palette in action, I did film a tutorial. It's called My First Date Tutorial, and I will leave a link to it in the description box down below. But for the eyeshadows, I used exclusively the Revealed 2 palette. So if you guys want inspiration on how to use some of these shades, I used this beautiful, beautiful burgundy purple here, which I absolutely love. And like I said, I'll put a link to that tutorial in the description box down below. Before I get into swatches of some of these shades, I'm not going to be swatching both of the entire palettes, but I will swatch some shades and I'll swatch some of the similar shades in the Urban Decay palettes just to show you guys a comparison. I want to talk about the formula a little bit of these shadows first. Now, I have to say, as far as quality of the shadows go, these are pretty good. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would maybe give these like a 7.5 or an 8. So they're not the best. Not all of the shades are creamy or super pigmented. The thing that I don't like about these palettes is that most of the shades are hit or miss. Some of them can be spectacular, absolutely amazing, completely rival the Urban Decay shades, almost to a T, can completely dupe them. But then some of the shades have kind of a strange formula. Some of them can be really, really powdery or chalky. Some of them can be overly glittery and have a lot of fallout. So overall, the palettes are hit and miss. So 20 shades, both of the palettes, I would say out of the 20 shades, have probably like 15 really good ones and then 5 that are kind of like okay. But once again, for the price that you're paying, which is under $20 per palette, I really don't think you can complain about that. At least I'm not complaining about that at all. I love the selection you get. I think the selection is what makes it for me. So now, without further ado, let's get into some swatches of some of my favorite shades in these two palettes. Okay, we're gonna start off by comparing the original Revealed palette with the Naked 1 palette. So a shade right off the bat that I can tell is similar to an Urban Decay shade is the top row, third in from the left. That shade is very, very similar to Urban Decay Sin, which is the second color in the palette. And I have swatches here on the back of my hand. This one here is Sin, and this one here is the Coastal Scents one. So you can see, as far as pigmentation wise goes, they're pretty similar. Sin may be a little bit more metallic, but overall they're very, very comparable. Now, another shade I can tell is very similar to an Urban Decay shade is this shade right here, top row, fourth in from the left. That is a really nice matte brown, and that shade is very, very similar to Naked in the Naked palette, which is the third in on the palette. You can see swatches here on the back of my hand. This one here is the Urban Decay shade, and this one here is the Coastal Scents shade. Now, I know this wasn't like the greatest color to use on the back of my hand because it kind of blends in a little bit, but you can see Tone-wise, very similar, and even texture-wise, when I swatched both of them with my finger, just the texture on both of them was very, very similar. The last comparison I want to show you with the Urban Decay Naked One is this shade right here. It's the bottom of the palette, third in from the right. That shade is very, very similar to Hustle, which is right here in the Urban Decay Naked palette. It's kind of a purpley taupe type color, and you can see those two swatched on the back of my hand here. This one is the Urban Decay one, and this one is the Coastal Scents one. And honestly, just based on my swatches, if anything, the Coastal Scents one is a little bit more pigmented than the Urban Decay one, which is really nice. Now, while there are a lot of other very similar shades in this palette to the revealed one, I want to move on to the Naked 2, but I will say there's a dupe for Toasted in the Coastal Scents palette, and there's also a dupe for Dark Horse. So if you really like either of those shades, you should check out the Coastal Scents palette. So now, as far as duping the Urban Decay Naked 2 palette, there are quite a few dupes of that palette in this one as well. The first color, Top Row, this is the light matte kind of buttercream highlight color. That shade is very, very similar to Foxy, which is the first shade in the Naked 2 palette. And here is a swatch of those two compared. This one is the Urban Decay one, and this one is the Coastal Scents one. Actually, the Coastal Scents one is more pigmented. It took me 2 layers to get this swatch of the Urban Decay and 1 layer to get this swatch of the Coastal Scents. Another dupe in the Urban Decay Naked 2 palette would be this shade right here, Top Row, third color from the right. And that shade is very, very similar to Half Baked, which I believe Half Baked is also in the Naked 1 palette, but those two shades are incredibly comparable, and you can see them here on the back of my hand. This bottom one is the Urban Decay, and the top one is the Coastal Scents, and you can just see how comparable they are. Even in texture, like I said when I was swatching them, very, very similar buttery feel. The next comparison is this shade right here, Top Row, fifth in from the left. It's kind of this matte purpley taupe color, and that is almost a dead-on dupe for Tease in the Naked 2 palette, which is right here. And you can see those swatched right here. This one is the Urban Decay, and this one is the Coastal Scents. So quality-wise, very similar. Shade-wise, very similar. Another very similar shade is this shade right here, Bottom Row, third color in from the right. And that shade is incredibly comparable to Busted, which is right here in the Urban Decay Naked 2 palette. And here are swatches of those two shades. This one is Busted on the top, and this one here is the Coastal Scents one. So you can see quality-wise, pigmentation-wise, color-wise, almost identical. So now we're going to put the Naked 2 palette away and the original revealed palette away. As you can see, there are so many comparable shades and a lot of almost exact dupes, in my opinion. Quality-wise, texture-wise, color-wise, they are virtually spot on. But I do want to do a little comparison with the revealed 2 as compared to the Urban Decay Naked 3. So the first shade in the palette I want to compare is the Top Row, fourth color in from the left. This one is very, very similar to Dust in the Naked 3 palette, which is the second color in. And this is a kind of weird shade. I don't really like this shade in either palette, but I wanted to show you guys that the texture of it is almost like, it's very, very glittery. It's almost like loose glitter that's been packed into a pressed eyeshadow format. This one is the Urban Decay, and this one is the Coastal Scents. You can see they both have a very strange texture. They're both a little sheer, and they have kind of that crumbly, glittery finish. So while I don't like this shade in either palette, Coastal Scents has totally and completely duped the horrendous Urban Decay eyeshadow, which I guess is kind of nice. The next shade I want to compare in the palette is Bottom Row, first color on the left. This is kind of a matte, kind of pinky toned light brown. And that shade is almost an exact dupe for Nooner in the Naked 3, which is this shade right here. And you can see those compared on the back of my hand here. This one here is the Urban Decay, and this one here is the Coastal Scents. So almost exact. Actually, I think, pretty much exact. The next color I want to compare in the palette is bottom row, second color on the left. And that one is almost an exact dupe of Liar in the Urban Decay Naked 3, which is right here. And here are swatches of those two. This one is the Urban Decay, and this one here is the Coastal Scents. The Coastal Scents may be just a touch darker, but tone-wise, very similar. You can get a very similar look on the eyes. And then the last color I want to compare for you guys is this shade, bottom row, second color in from the right. And that color is almost an exact dupe of Black Heart, which is the last color in the Naked 3. And here are swatches of those two shades. This one is the Urban Decay, and this one is the Coastal Scents on the bottom. So you can see almost exact. It's got like a matte black base with kind of reddish pink shimmer in it. Now there definitely are a lot more comparable colors in the Naked 3 to the Revealed 2 palette, but I don't want this video to be super long. I think you guys got the point of it. Both of these palettes, the original Revealed, which is right here, and the Revealed 2 palettes, both of them are absolutely stunning, stellar quality, amazing pigmentation on most of the shades, lots of almost exact dupes, if not very similar colors to the Naked 1, 2, and 3. And honestly, for $20 a pop, I really don't think you guys can go wrong with this. Even if you already have the original Naked palettes and maybe you're looking for something a little bit more travel friendly that basically has, you know, everything you need in one palette, because, you know, the original Revealed palette has essentially the Naked 1 and 2 palettes all combined into this palette, and it's so much thinner, it's skinnier, it's smaller, and it's just nicer to travel with. And even if it happens to get lost in traveling or it breaks in traveling, it's probably not going to be as heartbreaking, because if this breaks, this is $50 to replace. If this breaks, it's only $20. So you see my point? So that's pretty much all I have to say about the original Revealed and Revealed 2 palettes from Coastal Scents. I really do love them, and I will be using them a lot in the future. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thank you guys so much for watching. Bye!